Hello, everyone. I will see Shelly, Susan, Melinda. Hi, folks. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. We're just going to give people 1 or 2 minutes to hop on, and then we'll get started. Thanks for tuning in today. And hello, Shelly. How are you doing today, Shell?
I'm good. You know me, always a little sleepy, but I'm good.
Yeah.
A woman after my own heart. Always a little sleepy.
Me too, Susan. No matter how long you do it, eh? You know?
Exactly. Yeah. Sleep is good.
Yeah, it is. I love it.
Yeah, I do too.
The bed, as you get older, you never thought you'd say, I love the bed. I love the bed. Stay right there. You know?
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. We'd love to know who is joining us today. So if you feel comfortable, drop us a hello. Hi, Belinda. Is that Belinda Tupper
Hi,
joining us? She
Jenna.
just said hello in the
Hello.
chat.
Hi.
Yeah, folks, so feel free to drop in the chat and let us know if you're tuning in, where you're tuning in from. We'd love to know who's joining us for this conversation today. And we'll get started in about 1 more minute, I think. Just got another hi all from Facebook user.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
my
Aaron
friend
from
from
California.
Oh.
Yeah, that's very nice of her to join in.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're good to get started. So hello, everyone, and welcome to Connecting Through the Arts. My name is Jenna, and I work on a project called the Nova Scotia Network for Social Change, which is focused on building a network for those working on issues facing an aging population. On this project, I get to work with a pretty great team, some of whom which you'll get to meet today, starting with Shelly, who is up here on the screen and will be my co-host today for this event, and also Raina, Jocelyn, Ange, and Mo, and some of them may be popping into the chat with you all, so feel free to say hello. And as we start our time together today, I would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm coming to you today from Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of Mi'kmaq people. I wish to take a moment to acknowledge that we are all treaty people according to the peace and friendship treaties that were first signed in 1725. And I would also like to acknowledge the African Nova Scotian ancestors who have been situated on this land for over 400 years. So some of you may have tuned in before to some of our events, and if so, welcome back. And if you're new, welcome. As I was saying before, we'd love to know who's joining us. So feel free to say who you are in the chat and a hello. And to get us started, we kind of wanted to give you a little bit of background about why we're all here today and what started Connecting Through the Arts. So we started Connecting Through the Arts as a way to see how we might use the arts to initiate conversations that we tend to avoid, and in our case, around aging. COVID has brought to the forefront conversations and issues that families and community members have been saying for a very long time. Our team has heard through our work, through the generous offerings of elders and older adults, both Indigenous and African Nova Scotian, that the long-term care system is colonial. And we heard that there is an interest and a need to decolonize this system. Today, we're hoping that the short video we're going to be screening, along with a conversation with our guests that you see here on the screen and a Q&A period with all of you, will spark a collective reimagination of long-term care. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Shelly.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm not on mute. So I would like to take this moment to introduce our two guests and tell you a little bit about them. We have two guests that we are honored to have join us today, who have navigated the system to share their reflections and stories. So we're really, that's really special that you'll be sharing, and so generous of you both. First, let me introduce our guest, Melinda Daye. Melinda is a lifelong resident of the north end of Halifax, growing up on Creighton and Maynard, where she still lives today. She is a sought after, renowned speaker, facilitator, organizer, and advocate, the recipient of many national and international awards for which she is truly grateful for. She says that these things made me look deeper within. Melinda, like she already has mentioned, has been dedicated to education. She is a former principal teacher and past present pre, principal and teacher, sorry, and past president of the Black Educators and the executive director of the Black Educators. And she has served on many boards. I cannot list them all. So, with a continued sense of service and leadership, Melinda continues to bring forward a sense of integrity, respect, and pride, and in all that she endeavors to do. So now, oh, thank you for being here, Melinda. Now let me introduce our second guest and the creator of the short film, Susan MacLeod. Susan is an artist writing about the world of long-term care. Her illustrations have been published by Kaiser Permanente, Halifax Magazine, and Globe and Mail, as well as countless commissions. She holds a Bachelor of Fine Arts from NESCAD University and a Master of Fine Arts from King's, where she began work on Dying for Attention, her recently released graphic memoir of her experiences navigating her 90-year-old mother through long-term care. She still misses her mother, and you can visit Susan at susanmacleod.ca. So please give both guests a warm welcome.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Shelley said. Thank you both for coming on here today. When we extended the invitation, we were super excited that we get to have this conversation with the both of you. And to get started, as we said, we're going to screen the short film Nursing Home Mom and Me. And Susan, it's from my understanding you made this video a couple years ago in partnership with GovLab, right? And I just want to pass it over to you if you want to say a few words before we screen it.
Well, this little short video owes a lot to GovLab. It wouldn't exist if I didn't have the guidance and the support of the people in GovLab. And I just feel so honored and delighted to be part of the GovLab initiative. I think it may have changed, but one of the umbrella goals was to find resilience in intergenerational communities in Nova Scotia, and my heart certainly lies there, and I hope to continue working with GovLab. I also owe a debt to St. Vincent's Nursing Home. That wasn't the home my mother was at, but it was a home that I've sat on the board and volunteered with, for 10 years, and still lets me in to draw the residents. And I'm very happy to be part of that community, and they let me draw upon their experiences in creating this little short video. Movie, what am I thinking? Well, not all Hollywood on you.
Yeah, so thanks, Susan. I'm super excited for folks to get to see it. So I'm going to stop talking, and without further ado, here is Nursing Home Mom and Me.
My mother and I didn't get along, ever. She was a practical and competent conformist. I was an artistic and defiant dreamer. My curly hair was annoying to her. She had learned to dislike herself at a young age, and she taught me the same. I wondered what it would be like to look after her when she got old. I didn't want to visit my mother when she entered nursing home care at age 94. I wanted to pretend she was A-OK there. But I saw it was frightening and sad for her. I came to realize I couldn't just leave her there. I had to learn to love her. Reluctantly, I made my way to see her regularly. I was always uneasy. I didn't know what to expect, how to act, what to say, or what to do. But I wasn't alone. There were other people like me there too, and the care workers. Many of them were younger than I was. I wondered how they could relate to these elderly people. I asked one of them.
I didn't really plan on working with seniors. It was like the last population that I planned on working with. I was a bit scared of the elderly and how to interact with them. I didn't think we communicated in the same way. My generation all grew up with cell phones in our hands, and their form of communication is just so much more old-fashioned and so different than ours. I didn't know if I was going to be able to communicate effectively with them. So one stigma that I had about the elderly was that they simply didn't have as much fun as young people do. But working with them, I quickly discovered that they definitely have as much fun, if not more at times, as younger people. Last night, a group of Scottish men came in kilts and everything, to play music for them. And the whole front row stood up and danced like that they were at a concert or something like that. So that was really amazing. And it actually reminded me of teenagers, like at a concert or something. They were so excited and so enthused, and it was just an amazing thing to see.
After hearing the story of the dance, I began to think in a new way about my mother. I wondered if I could adopt a new attitude on my visits. If only I could awaken something in my mom that would make her less lonely. I started to recall Mom's interests, her habits, her conversations, and I catered to them. To pay so much attention was exhausting, but with no other family there, it was important and worth it. To my surprise, I gradually grew fonder of Mom and who she was at heart. She began to break out in a grin whenever she saw me walk down the hall. This was a far cry from the critical look up and down or remark about my unruly hair that I was used to from her. As I paid more attention to my mother, I too discovered more about the elderly. Once I slowed down, Mom's fellow residents began to show me who they were too. I learned their names and something about them so we could converse regularly. I began sketching the residents. One of my favorites was Suzanne. She was a solo Greek chorus of positive validation who spoke often of her late husband. Everyone there had lived a full life. They each had their own story. It was fascinating to listen to them.
I was born in Louisburg. From there, I ended up in Sydney. From Sydney, I ended up in Ontario. Ontario ended up in Quebec.
When I was a young engineer, the computer wasn't known. When the computer came, I became very interested.
The States always impressed me. I don't know why, but maybe it was the Golden Corral. They have all you can eat, buffets, everything.
Well, I tackled life, really with complete energy. The kids, there's 4 of them, and I'm very proud of it.
I had my ups and I had my downs. When you look at it all, and I made the worst and the best of it.
After a year and a half of visiting Mom, I began to really see everyone there in a new light. I could see how the executive director worked hard to keep it all together with very little money. The staff worked hard too. They were all just people. Sometimes they would share their feelings with me.
Working here has just taught me to be reflective, and it makes me think about the future and think about myself a lot. It's a very positive thing. I think it's taught me to cherish my life, and I'm really thankful for it.
The people is the best part of it, really good. The people is generous, they are patient, and they do their work in good cheer.
Very good here. They're very good. They're always on the ball and they always want to do something.
The more I visited Mum, the stronger and more loving she became. When Mum was dying, I told her many times I loved her. Finally, she replied, halting with pain, "I know you love me. I don't know why you do, but it's wonderful." Visiting my mum in the nursing home has changed my life. I now see older people and their caregivers in a new light. It's been said, old age is not for sissies. It takes bravery to grow very old and endure all that comes with it. And the people who care for them know that well. They too make the best of caring for people during the last act, an age that is not well understood, well supported, or often seen, avoided even. I am grateful to all the heroes who live and work in nursing homes. I am grateful to my mother.
Wow, I guess I just want to start off by saying thank you, Susan, for allowing us to share that video. And also thank you for sharing your story through your new book as well. This isn't my first time watching the video, but I feel like every time that I watch it and also reading through your book, it provokes something in me to keep digging deeper on some of the thoughts and themes that are coming forward. And I think both the video and your book are serving as a way to show the humanness, both the families, the workers, everyone that's in that system that sometimes isn't very humane. So I just wanted to say thank you for that.
Welcome.
And folks, just, yeah. And as we move forward, if people at the end, we're going to be having questions for both Susan and Melinda. So feel free to drop your questions or comments in the chat as we move along. And Susan, before I turn it over to Melinda, I just wanted to ask, because I know there's been some time between when you first wrote this book, when you wrote your book and this film. So is there anything else that you wanted to share about your story and your experiences that might have come up through that time period and writing your book?
Yeah, it has been about 3 years, I think. We made that film when I was with the GovLab cohort, and that was before COVID. And watching it again kind of brought tears to my eyes. I had forgotten so much that was in that, and and I want to say it's better than I thought it was. So, again, thanks to GovLab for helping me with that. And Communications Nova Scotia did the editing and the music, and that was also well done. I could never have done that on my own. But I'm grateful, particularly to Sarah, for letting me interview her and express her very honest feelings about what it's like to be very young and still and working with the very old. She was in her 20s at the time, and she was very honest about her feelings going into that particular placement and what she gained from it. So I'm grateful for her too. Yeah.
Yeah, I was good. And I'm hoping we can maybe dig into it a little bit later, but it's one of the things, it's like these assumptions about growing older that folks have. And I think Susan, you kind of shared too as well, how your perceptions and things changed as you visited your mom. So
yeah,
that's one of the things that's really sticking out for me after watching that. And yeah, thank you. And so Melinda, I want to pass it over to you. From my understanding, you have some experiences and story to share about navigating your mom through the long-term care. And I just want to pass some time to you to share what you feel is important to be shared.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Jenna. Susan, the film brought emotions, tears to my eyes as well. Um, my grief is very real, very not very real, very very soon, like very recent, I guess. I'm trying to say. So, Mom just passed October the 18th, and much of what you said in the film, I could, as a daughter, I could very well relate to, very well, right? And I'm sure many daughters, it's a mother daughter thing too. It's different, and moms are different with their sons. I think from my experiences.
Yeah.
Um, so I wanted to say that thank you, Susan, for that, and I took a few minutes to just take a breath because it was well done, very well done, and I can see what you're talking about 3 years ago and today. It just brought back all those emotions, and even more so. My mom, was too in a nursing care home. I want to express my appreciation to inspiring communities, to connecting through the art, to call us together to get today for this type of conversation is so vital, so very important. So I want to express my appreciation to you in asking me to be a part of this great conversation. It's much appreciated, much needed. I want to talk a bit about Mom and how who she is. I think people need to know that and then you move into how she got into and why she got into long-term nursing care. My mom was Laura Daye, Laura Wilhelmina Daye. She was a Barton from Acaciaville, Digby County, an all-black community where she grew up. Mom was the youngest of 17. She was the youngest of 17. And her mom sadly died when Mom was only 2 years old. So Mom never had any recollection of her mom. She didn't have a mom. She had a stepmother later in life, and that didn't go all too well, right? So that accounts for some of the things in terms of who Mom was and some of the things that she may have said or done along the way, right? But that Mom, in spite of all that, Mom did attend high school. She attended Digby High School, and Mom received her grade 11. She always loved education. She loved to read. She loved to learn more. She was always into books and the news and accomplishment. She wanted us. She wanted to see the best in us and for us. And by that, I mean she married when she came to Halifax, and she came to Creighton Street, which was predominantly always for many years, the black community of Creighton Street and Gary Street as well. But Mom came and she lived on Creighton Street with her sister, and she met Buddy Day, and Mom became the love of his life. And between the two of them, they raised 9 children, and what a time we had. We had a lot of fun in our home, though. We really did. We had Daddy, busy with what he was doing, community advocacy and
Yes.
boxing world, and then politics, and we had this what we saw was a strong, strict disciplinarian, but we understand now because Mom had to do what she had to do. She had 9 children. So there were indeed a lot of things that we were allowed to do, we were encouraged to do, we had to be, and there were a lot of things that we just weren't allowed to do or go or do. And so that's what it was. Mom was later, she did like many black women. Mom had to do housework. Mom did housework. Daddy worked for reliable cleaners, and Mom was doing housework. And I can remember a few times when Mom would take me and my second oldest sister, and we would go to the homes in the South End where my mom worked to clean their homes. A lot of black women did days work, it was called, And so when I looked at the movie called The Help, please know that that is very real and very common to many of our Black Nova Scotian women. That's what they had to do, and they did it. Later, was employed with the Halifax District School Board. She got a job there with the school board, and Mom was a teacher assistant in special ed, and then later in reading resource, she was a reading recovery teacher with the resource reading department. So Mom had 27 years with the Halifax Regional School Board, and she just, of course, loved that. She loved it, and they thought the world of Mrs. Day in many of our schools in Halifax, and in the later years, the North End schools, uh, St. Joseph's A. McKay, and Richmond School. So education was the key, and I'm fast forwarding now because this was a woman that was very strong, very active, loved to travel, loved to dress. Mom loved style. She loved to see us in style. She dressed us. The shops that were on Gaudigan Street in New York dress shop, we were taken there, so we would know, good style. And Mills Brothers on Spring Garden Road, Mom would take us there, so we would know good style, good clothing, and how to dress and walk and talk and that type of thing. Mom loved those type of things, and she wanted those things for her children. Education, like I said, was top of the line. There were many times in her life that she was sadly disappointed in things and hurt. She also endured discrimination and racism in her life as well. She was an overcomer. She loved to stand up and stand strong. She never had the voice that Daddy had in terms of being out there, but Mom was at the table at a lot of times at various meetings where you knew where Laura stood as well. And so those things were always very important for us. She was the cook. She loved to cook, like many Black women in the home do. Mom did the cooking. She was a baker. We loved to sit there and enjoy Mom's cooking and her baking. I will now fast forward to, those years. I think it started with in the 80s. Mom was in her early 80s, late 70s, 79, maybe 80. And we could see something was happening to Mom. Something was happening. The forgetfulness, the very hard to grasp sometimes what was really happening in a conversation. Mom's conversations some at times began to be scattered. Um, she could not really grasp. She knew something was happening to her because I learned that she told people. She didn't want to tell us, not me especially, but she never wanted to tell us something was happening. But I've learned that Mom knew because she told people that she confided in her age bracket that something's happening with me, and I think a lot of times we have to know that. It's hard to express it, when to express it, but something is happening with yourself, and she revealed that to people. I could she I was telling you that there took a long time for Mom and all of us to grasp what was really happening in terms of the forgetfulness, the dementia, the home care, that her home care was very poor. The cooking was very poor. She lost the sense of her cooking. She lost the sense of her style and her dress. That hurt to see that type of thing happening to her. She thought she was doing these things. She thought she had it. She thought she still had it. Um, and it was very, very, very hard. She dug her heels in hard and deep. we took her to geriatrics doctor, to finally, reluctantly, she gave in to the boys, to my brothers, to see a geriatrics, and it was at the second visit where they give you these sort of tests and so on, and the second test and the second visit, that's where the doctor said that, Mrs. Day, something is indeed happening here, and I would like to, and he told her, and he used the word dementia, but he also used the word Alzheimer's. And so we were sitting there, a few, my brothers and sisters and I, and not all of us, but a few of us. And she sat there, and she listened attentively to what he was saying, but she wasn't hearing it, you guys. She wasn't hearing it. We were hearing it. He told her, I wanted to put you on these pills, Mrs. Day, because this will help, and so on. Mom said, I took 3 pills already. I'm not taking any more. Three pills. That's all she took. So he's tried to explain to her, Must Day, I see patients who take a lot of pills, but anyhow, the fast forward again, she didn't. She would not take home care in the house. Um, Reluctant, very sadly, adult protection got involved because mom wasn't doing and wasn't paying attention to what the doctor was trying to put in place and what her children were trying to put in place. And if you don't do those type of things, um, adult protection do get involved, and adult care and protection, they get involved. And she eventually, did go into Northwood. She went in probably. She was there for almost 7.5 years. Mom was in Northwood. She was in the long-term care there. I probably shouldn't have named the name, but no, I'm fine with that because Mom, she was there for those years. When she first went in, many people know that Laura Day was a walker. She walked the common. She walked everywhere in this city if you let her. Even if you didn't let her, she still did it. So that was her. She was strong. She was strong and strong-willed. she she was a determined person, right? And she used to say, I put my faith and trust in Jesus, and if it's His will that I can venture out there today, then I venture out, and she did. And so what we saw was that Mom was a walker. However, sadly, when Mom got into the long-term facility, eventually, Mom was on a walker, and I know that she still had enough of her in there to realize something else has happened here. Now I've got this thing, and I'm relying on it. So she did begin to rely on the walker. At first, for the longest time, she was reluctant to rely on the walker. So she eventually did that, and she gave in to that. I'm going to fast forward again to how she was, the kind of person she was in the nursing home, in that she was on a walker. She loved to people watch. She would sit outside her room and she would just watch the other residents. And somehow she became, quote, the leader or whatever. So the others would all go be around Mom's room. So yes, Susan, I too began to know everybody. I not only went in to visit Mom, I visited the residents. And I'd come on the floor and I'd either make my presence known or they would let me know, hi, Melinda. But we had a lot of great times, especially with music. When it came to be music or recreation, the bingo, but music, oh yeah. And we're a musical family, so Mom loved all that in the beginning years, and it was only until the last year or two it wasn't so. Mom's dementia was at a different stage, but she loved the music. I loved carrying on with the music and the residents in the home. She loved to tell her story. And I will ask you if you get a chance to look at Craig Smith's video. He shot a wonderful video of three ladies and their life story in Northwood, from their life and then into Northwood. And the three ladies that Craig Smith has, Shelley, is Mrs. Daye, Mrs. Haley Smith. Ricky Smith is still living. It's his mother. And the lady that those two ladies, my mother and Mrs. Smith, have passed, but the other lady, Mrs. Margaret Gordon, is alive. She's 100 years old. If you ever get an opportunity, that's another great film to view. So now Mom is in Northwood, and I'll tell you, as a caregiver, there's so much that you have to give of yourself that you find yourself sometimes maybe losing yourself sometimes, you know, and you have to listen to what your friends and family are saying to you, what your body is saying to you as well, in terms of you got to look after you. You got to make sure that you're doing things that matter to you. You got to make sure that you find peace and love and happiness, that you do recreation, and that you keep yourself mentally and physically active. So I had to take that in mind, and do those type of things and make sure I look after myself as well. We we were a family that was much affected by the COVID in terms of Mom being in there. We were one of those families, um, and we know so many other families. So we were watching attentively to what was happening each day. Very hurtful at times. You know, you couldn't help but be hurt by a lot of things that you were seeing, that you were hearing, and you couldn't go. A lot of our people, sadly, we were losing them. And we knew these people as a Black community. We know them. And it hurt greatly that we couldn't see them, we couldn't visit with them. Um, we would hear every day, somebody else is gone, somebody else is gone. So we were one of the families greatly affected by that, and me being the designated caregiver, the calls and everything, the correspondence was coming to Melinda, so I had to be there. I had to be at the phone, at the computer, wherever I could be to talk to the staff, nurses, doctors. And then I think many of you may remember that they had to get the other hospital staff, people from the QE2 came in to help Northwood. So I got calls from them as well in terms of what was happening, and any concerns that they had, any suggestions that they had. They also called us residents and informed us of what things that they believed that we should know, to better answer, to better ask questions, and to better get the PPE, because at that time they were not getting those things. They were, yes, they didn't have the PPE, the PPE. They didn't have the staff that they needed, and the accommodations were not such. So a lot of things that came out of this COVID in terms of long-term health care for residents, for the elderly. When you say, Susan, that often these are the people that were avoided, um, we said we were concerned for them, but it didn't really show that we were. And sometimes, most often, um, they were just totally avoided sometimes. And we learned some hard lessons that we needed to learn, and the advocacy that we need to have for our loved ones, and not just especially for our loved ones, but for what was happening in the homes and with the workers as well. So
Yeah.
we learned a great deal about that. I learned a great deal, and I'm sure my other siblings can attest to that as well. On Mother's Day, that was very hurtful. And let me kind of close a little bit because I'm talking a lot, and I want to make sure that people get a chance to ask questions. But I remember the Mother's Day, and you may too. Think back. I think it was the 2019 Mother's Day, yeah, or 20, anyhow. The Mother's Day where we couldn't see our moms, where we couldn't get into the nursing homes. And Mom was there. They not only our mom, but other moms too. They brought them to the window, and Mom was in the window, and she was still with the walker, but she was weak on her legs. I didn't, Mom, I knew that they had told me, but Mom was weak, and then she stood up in the window on the Creighton Street side, and we could see her, and we had big banners and things like that, and we were writing, we were waving, all her children, all her grandchildren, that as many that could come. We were all there, and we were waving and saying how much we love you and Happy Mother's Day, Mom. And Mom kept waving at us, and she would smile and wave over at this one, and she'd wave at that one, and she'd blow a kiss from time to time, right? But then she'd sit back down, and because you could tell she was weak on her legs too. One of the most difficult times in our lives, in anyone's life, is knowing that Mom is there, but you can't get to her, and you can't touch her, you can't be there because of COVID, because of what was happening in those long-term nursing care homes. You just did the best that you could, and that's what happened a lot of the times. She did very well. She never ever got COVID. She was always negative. I'll tell you one thing though. Dalhousie University contacted me because here was this woman on the 6th floor where a lot was happening in terms of positive, and she remained negative. So they wanted to know what antibodies she may have built up. What is it about her? Because she always tested, I guess I'll say, she always tested negative. So we had to work hard. I worked hard in terms of, okay, you need to get her off the floor though. We can't just leave her there. So that's when Northwood started making the shift, making the change, because we were shouting and saying, look, we've got to find a place somehow. We've got to do some things different. So eventually she was taken from the 6th to the 1st floor, where everybody on the floor was negative. And that's where Mom's resided for the next few years, and she succumbed to dementia and to pneumonia. October the 18th. I think I'd like to just kind of stop here for a bit and allow conversation, questions, because when you talk to me and ask me questions, I have so much more I can share with you.
Thanks for sharing, Melinda.
Thank you.
If I can jump in, I want to thank you for sharing, Melinda. It seems like we've had similar experiences, although Mom died before COVID. But I just wanted to add about, you talked about avoiding seniors, and I know we were talking about the colonialization, is that a word, of the long-term care system. And I know that's so because I was the spokesperson for that system, and I was quite appalled when I became a user of the system, because when I was in the system, we honestly believed we were doing the best we could with the money we had. And we were convinced of that, but we didn't have any experience in, any of us, the Premier's office, the Deputy Minister of Health, any of the decision makers. Nobody was actually going into the homes. And in fact, we were quite ageist. We used to make fun of elderly people. And here we are, the decision makers. And that's that is so wrong. How can you make just decisions if you're not even seeing the people you're making decisions for as whole human beings? So it's not just avoidance, it's a lot of discrimination, and we used to speak in the government in terms of numbers. So whenever we got criticism about what the system was, we would respond, yes, but we've upped the budget by 1.3 million or whatever it was. But that never translates into care for people.
Yes, that's where it matters.
And we used to talk we've added, 1,000 nursing home beds. God, we never had that many, but with so many nursing home beds. And beds are a funding unit. They are not people. That's not care for people. So the whole system, in my mind, has to change its attitude. It has to look at providing care for human beings in the way that human beings need care. My nursing home experience with Mom was that they were processed. They were like files, they were just fed, toileted, giving them the meds, and then they were parked somewhere because it's an underfunded system.
That's the scary part. That's the scary part. Is that they were given these things, they were fed, they were nursed, they were cared for, they were parked somewhere. And when you and I go in on a regular basis, we begin to see that John is still sitting there. He's just lost sitting there. And Susan is lost. Mrs. Fraser is over here. And this year, and I didn't want that to happen, and you saw it happening. And other caregivers, we were there. Eventually, when we got it back into Northwood, to the long-term care, we began to see and to talk and to ask questions and to make comments and suggestions and say these very same conversations. That's why when I say that this is so important, Shelley and Jenna, it is so important. Because like you say, Susan, we weren't doing it right. And we need to learn something here. And that is, there's still people. I'm a person. I may very well be. You may very well be. We have no idea. But we know that one thing, we're people. We have a life, full life. This person lived a life. And we as government, and we as people and as government, and if we need to be the champions for change, then let's say it. Let's do it. And let's not allow our voices ever to be silenced. Go ahead, Susan.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say the values need to change. So it seems like government, and not wrongly, it bases its decisions on money, which of course we are a have-not province. So the budget needs, of course, attention. However, it's not the only thing. And in some ways, compassion doesn't have to be expensive. Now, that's not to say that long-term care is funded adequately. I don't think it is. But at the same time, if compassion is a value in decision-making at the government level, then maybe things will change. I don't know. But there's got to be an attitude change as well as, at the premier level, instead of just being a nuisance. And opposition would use the advocates for long-term care to make points with the government. But no, we don't want to be used in a bipartisan fight. Like,
that's not what it's about.
We need to come together for solutions across parties. And, sorry, you got me going. Can you feel my passion?
But that's a good getting going. Jenna?
Okay, Jenna?
No, I'm really curious listening to the both of you. It's like, Susan, what you're saying about the values needing to change, and then hearing both of your stories about connecting with the folks that were in both the homes that your parents were in. And I'm just like thinking about, as we think about how long-term care should change, and what care should look like, it's like one of the things that is coming up for me is like this segregation of older adults from the rest of community, from the rest of society. It's like, that's one thing. It's sounds for me, and I'm not sure if people are having similar reflections, that's coming through. It's like, why are we not having that connection and that value that older adults bring to our society?
I know in Saskatoon, they seem to do that right. There's a school in Saskatoon where grade sixes, the entire year of grade six happens in a nursing home. And it's such a popular program that parents enter lotteries to get their child into that grade six in the nursing home. And that's, I think, where intergenerational connection can start. If young kids understand that very elderly people are still people and have a lot to offer, then they won't grow up with the prejudice that, for instance, Sarah was expressing. I don't think I can talk to them because they will be familiar. So I tried to initiate that when I sat on the board of St. Vincent's, but we didn't. St. Vincent's just didn't have the infrastructure to host a classroom. So there's a lot of barriers, but at the same time, attitude, we need to start thinking, and I know that's what GovLab wants to do, and I'm there, GovLab.
Now this conversation takes me back to before COVID, because now I do recall, when I was principal of an elementary school here in the community, right? We did have the relationship because the school was on this corner and the nursing home was right across the street on the next corner. So we had a Friday afternoon relationship with students from this elementary school, and where we would go, they would go over to the long-term care home right across the street. Yeah. And that stopped and then came back again. And it started again, maybe a year or two with Mom being in there, because I recall some pictures now my sister took of students who came and worked and were on the floor doing recreational activities and music activities with the seniors. A lot stopped because of COVID.
Yes.
I don't, we want to say that we want to believe that we can get back. I hope we do. I really do, because those things did matter. They were a great help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have a couple of comments. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Okay.
A couple of comments from folks down over in the chat. Belinda was sharing that her experience has been really similar to what both of you are describing, that the culture is based on efficiency and not dignity. And we also have a comment from Allison, who said, but what I'm seeing here is that the attitude change needs to happen throughout society, not just at the government level. All of us can learn compassion for the elderly, and this can change politics. So
yes, I agree. I think we need leadership in the government, and at the same time, we need the grassroots pressure to change the leadership. Like, I think it's got to happen everywhere.
It happens through grassroots pressure a lot of times.
Yes.
Grassroots pressure.
Yeah.
The most influence that you can give is that grassroots. You don't give up from that grassroots. Those grassroots decisions and that input from them helped that political table, make the policies and procedures that they do and sign off on appropriate decisions that need to be made. Yeah, so it's that grassroots.
It takes a lot of and it takes a lot of skill at the grassroots level, because politicians will only do what gets them votes. I'm sorry if I sound cynical, but you have to know where the pressure will work, So it's a very skillful kind of intelligent grassroots pressure, I think.
Yeah.
I just want to put it out there too. I think we have a couple minutes left. If folks have any more questions for Melinda and Susan, just drop them in the chat. I have a question as we're talking about this. I'm really curious about both of your thoughts are about like what acts of resistance could look like in terms of getting the whole system to change. I know it's kind of a full question because there's probably big things and small things, but I'm just curious. I feel like you've touched on a couple throughout. but just wondering if you have any more thoughts on those things.
Well, that's a good question. Go ahead, Melinda.
No, I wasn't ready for it. I was going to ask her, explain your question, because I thought we were talking about that. So
yeah, I guess I'm just.
What do you think we as community and government can, or what, I wasn't clear. Go ahead.
I think I'm kind of curious if it's like, how do we open up the conversation that sort of we're having here today, and and maybe it's simply having the conversation and keep having the conversation with more people and actually listening to the things that are being said in these conversations. I'm just curious how we get.
Well, one thing I'm thinking of doing, I don't know if I'll go through with that. I will. But there's an online stand-up comedy course that's being offered in February. And I was thinking there are so many catch-22s and so many absurdities in nursing home care. Melinda, I think you can relate mixed messages, and there is humor in it. And if I can develop a stand-up comedy routine, horrifying as that is, and maybe put like 1 minute or 30-second snippets of it on social media where I think young people are. I don't know. It might start a conversation. I don't know.
Linda Carvery is sits on the board of, and as you know, she's the daughter of Margaret Gordon, but she was in a skit, and they performed it. Everything was well before COVID. It's like before COVID. But she was in a skit, her and some other caregivers, they all got together and they had a skit, Susan, and they presented it up there at Northwood. It was a fun evening for laughter,
right.
But you were also saying something. You were getting a point across. You were using it through laughter, through humor too, but you were able to get that point across, right? I think what you're saying, Jen, I like that. Anywhere that you can get in, and if that's your personality, that's who you are, then use that, right?
Right.
I think what you're saying is, I like the question that you're asking, like Susan said. I think what you do is you just keep talking, and then because at that table you're bringing in more and more people, and you've got people already saying, you know what? My mind has been challenged tonight. My thought process has been challenged. I'm thinking a little differently.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. And that's what we need. Nova Scotians are good at that. We need to go a step further, with it. But we're good at that, right? Because we are.
Good at changing life.
We got to go further. We got to go further. We got to go deeper. I mean, what I'm talking about is, we're good at like listening and being challenged by something, but in terms of really going and with it, that's where the problem lies sometimes, So that's why I say whatever means,
I just had an idea that maybe I need to do the stand-up comedy with someone from St. Vincent's, like with a residence, to show, that we're all people. We can, something, so that it's not me. It's in concert with someone who's an older person, who's elderly, and show their sense of humor. I know there are lots of them at St. Vincent's.
Well, thank you, everyone.
If I could just close by saying
take your time.
Because I wanted to give closing remarks in terms of Nova Scotia. I serve also on the Nova Scotia Hospice and Palliative Care Association. And I serve on that because we provide information in terms of advanced care planning, and we provide tips and discussions on making plans for your future in the event that maybe you're not able to do so. And we need to have those conversations. You know what I'm talking about, yeah? And so we need to have conversations with that as well. Go ahead.
I'll jump in. My friend Allison in California, she and I belong to a group called Visualizing End-of-Life Issues, where we're looking at how we can help people start these conversations with the use of drawing the conversations so that it's perhaps not as onerous.
Wow.
Yeah, see, so there you go, Susan, like draw it out in so many daring ways, right? But that's where we are now, right? And so these things, Jenna and Shelley, these conversations, I guess what I'm saying is, take you from that step to another step, to another level. You didn't know where you didn't know you would be going. But I'm glad in the last couple of years that it took me to a place called Nova Scotia Hospice and Palliative Care Association. And
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot in terms of the conversations that need to have been had and need to have with our community. There's so many others, but I'm there advocating and representing and trying to encourage that conversation, Shelley, with the African Nova Scotian community.
If we
What are we going to do? What plans do you have in place? And it's hard to talk about, but we have to have that conversation.
I agree, but we have run out of time.
Yeah.
But we see this as just the beginning of a conversation. And we hope to have the opportunities to continue this conversation. Like you said, Melinda, there's a lot of dialogue that has to happen. And I love what you were saying, Susan, about, the creative way of communicating in the end of, life conversations. That is just amazing. But I want to thank you both for sharing this wisdom and knowledge, because otherwise, I've learned a lot myself today. So I thank you.
Thank you for having us this opportunity.
Thank you.
And Melinda, we're going to have to get together.
Loved every moment of it. It was absolutely wonderful. I'll see you, Susan.
And thank you, everyone that came.
So. We have so much to talk about.
We do.
Okay. Thank you.
We're going for coffee, girl.
Thank you.
Okay,
Shelley, Jenna, thank you.
And thank
so
you
much.
for everyone who joined in. It was so good to have this conversation.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.